In this world, all it takes is a little courage to step outside to become stronger. The only thing you need to do is leave your home. Yet, the number of people daring to venture out is alarmingly low. 700 years ago, an apocalypse struck, and a monstrous entity called the Malevolent took over the world. Amidst humanity's struggle for survival, a tower suddenly emerged. It has become the last safe haven in a world torn apart by catastrophe. Just stepping outside the tower's boundaries, even surviving for a mere second, can grant you extraordinary power. But correspondingly, you will have to face bizarre and grotesque horrors. In places where humanity resides, hierarchies emerge. Within the tower, people are divided into various classes. Those on the upper floors have the liberty to capture those below and throw them out of the tower, betting on their survival time in exchange for entertainment resources. Bai Woo is but a beggar turned into a source of amusement. When he awakens, he finds himself in this scorching heat. Yet, rather than worrying about his situation, his curiosity is drawn to the sky above. As he gazes up at the sky, a strange dialogue box appears before his eyes. The box warns him that the temperature here is 60 degrees and is rising at a rate of 0.2 degrees per minute. Bai Woo notices this and sits up, feeling the intense burns on his back. The dialogue box continues its incessant chatter, but Bai Woo's mind drifts to other matters. As he fixes his gaze on a relatively intact structure, about 3 seconds later, the box also updates. A public restroom, unused for 700 years, carries a danger rating of 3.5 stars. Inside, the toxicity is moderate, and the service is exceptionally welcoming. Soon after, he turns his attention to other ruins. After several trials, he realizes he can see some information just by focusing on an object for 2 or 3 seconds. An annoyingly intrusive dialogue box pops up. Finally, he shifts his gaze to his wrist. Have I been transported to another world? Why am I handcuffed? Have I become a criminal in this life? In Bai Woo's fragmented memories, the last sound he recalls is the gunshot from a murder case. He was once a special agent in a criminal investigation unit, with outstanding observational and analytical skills. Moreover, he had always been different since childhood. This system, incapable of perceiving negative emotions, left him cold. When his father passed away, Bai Woo shed not a single tear. At this moment, the words in the dialogue box pulled him back to reality. These handcuffs are anything but ordinary, they appear to be mere cuffs. But in reality, they are tracking devices from the 4th floor aristocrats. It would be best not to destroy them. For now, he needs to find a way to blend in, or else he risks being roasted alive. Bai Woo hastens down the road, his thoughts racing with urgency. It seems I've been thrust into a bizarre world, and my situation is dire. The body can withstand an environment of 71 degrees for 1 hour, but only 49 minutes in 82 degrees. Time is not on his side, and there's a surveillance room nearby. Bai Woo felt a strange premonition and looked up. This scene was also unfolding in the grand entertainment hall of the aristocrats. The wealthy and powerful wore expressions of confusion. Wasn't it said that the blue zone is extremely dangerous? How is he still alive? Could the house have found a talent masquerading as a slave? A talent masquerading as a slave? Bai Woo let out a quick sigh, then pressed on. Deep down, he silently recalled the memories of the original master of this body. 700 years in the high tower. Cruel jokes. The shackled environment of the aristocracy. So, was this a gamble concerning his survival? Bai Woo had only a vague understanding, as the memories he inherited were scant. Moreover, the temperature was already estimated to have soared to 70 degrees. The urgent task now was to find a cool place. At that moment, the sound of flowing water suddenly echoed. Bai Woo immediately turned around. The rules of the world outside the tower were indeed strange, in such weather. There was still a water source. I truly can't bear this any longer. Ignoring the nonsensical dialogue, Bai Woo made his way towards a nearby fire hydrant. In a place that had been deserted for 700 years, there were still functional devices. Furthermore, in this heat, the water remained icy cold. Bai Woo found himself increasingly intrigued by this world. If that was the case, then at least in the drainage, the temperature wouldn't be too harsh. And the fact that water could spray into this area meant that the entrance to the underground wasn't far off. Along the way, Bai Woo quickly discovered a passage leading down. The manhole cover had long been opened. He had no time to ponder, his body was nearing its limits. The real way to break the deadlock was to find a path back to the high tower. But before descending, he wanted to accomplish one thing: to prove to those above that he did not coexist peacefully with gamblers. Yet, he was unaware of the language used by the people in this world to convey meaning. Meanwhile, within the 4th floor noble space of the tower, Many aristocrats fell into a state of agitation once again. They couldn't comprehend why a talentless beggar was still alive. And it wouldn't be wrong to say that even upon entering another world, international jewels retained their value. At the same time, in the VIP guest box, a lady in red picked up her phone, berating her subordinate for failing to inspect the goods thoroughly. On the other end of the line, the person in charge of the betting was also in a panic. Cold sweat plastered across his face. After hanging up, he immediately ordered a man in armor standing by. The monsters in the blue zone are incredibly powerful. You should best keep your emotions in check. Any hint of negative emotion sensed by those monsters will send them into a frenzy, attacking without mercy. But remember this: whether you live or die, that wretched soul cannot be allowed to survive. At this moment, Bai Woo has arrived at the drainage tunnel. Miraculously, the water reflects shimmering lights, revealing his face upon the surface. The dialogue once again begins to mock him. A beggar at the base of the tower with a face that could rival a celestial being. How utterly unfair. It's maddening. I want to duel with you. Bai Woo feels a twinge of helplessness. Yet he continues to scan his surroundings. His past life has taught him that once a bet is placed, someone is bound to lose everything. Right now, he's outside the realm of control, and it's only a matter of time before someone comes looking for him. He must devise a strategy to deal with this impending threat. After a moment, he halts. Just then, he hears another pair of footsteps. Someone has come to seek me. The corners of Bai Woo's mouth curl into a smirk as he tunes in to the faint sound of approaching steps. His gaze fixates on the figure emerging from the shadows. Second tier life force. Segment 4. Talent scale 755. Armed with steel. A power that could rival elite warriors and monsters alike. Known as General Fan Feng, of course. Someone like you, who walks the path of righteousness, shouldn't be too overconfident. Twisting your brain around is no challenge for me. Bai Woo may not yet know the full extent of his opponent's talents, but he is aware that the desire to take his life won't be an easy task. In the next moment, Bai Woo conceals himself in the darkness and speaks. "Ah, old friend, you've finally arrived." This sluggish pace is truly slower than a mudrat. The newcomer is immediately caught off guard. Bai Woo isn't sure if the other party understands, but judging by the reaction, it seems to align with his expectations. The darkness within the tunnel obscures the newcomer's ability to discern his whereabouts. Bai Woo continues. Second tier. Segment 4. Armed with steel. Are you not employing Indian time? How amusing. How did I come to know your talent scale? Do you genuinely believe that a beggar at the bottom could survive for so long? How adorable and naive. Many wish to see me dead. So the boss sent you to deal with me. But how can you be sure this isn't part of a larger scheme? A beggar from below not only survives but mocks everyone. Isn't this a perfect show? And now, the boss has arranged for you, a pitiful being, to come here. Everyone expects you to tear me apart. But do you know, in the actual script, you will never tear me apart. And you're certain to remain here. I'll continue to mock the nobles over your corpse. As he speaks, Bai Woo stands face to face with the newcomer. At that moment, the house will open a new betting game. The gamblers will go mad with excitement. So tell me, are you ready to receive this exquisite gift? At that moment, a bizarre creature appeared above Bai Woo's head. The footsteps of the approaching figure halted. In the next instant, the monster lunged straight at them. Its horrifying screams and the sound of flesh being devoured echoed throughout the underground. It turned out that the solution Bai Woo had discovered was the only malevolent beast in this world. Previously, he had learned through dialogues and fragments of the original owner's memories that this wicked creature thrived on negative emotions to identify humans. Yet, Bai Woo was an anomaly who couldn't perceive negativity. He had skillfully led the approaching person into a state of panic. In the Azure Zone, even the slightest hint of fear could prove lethal. After waiting for the monster to depart, Bai Woo stepped into the water, feeling around until he stumbled upon a circular disc made of black iron, roughly the size of a hand. This is the homecoming device you've longed for. It's quite simple, just spin it, and you can return to where you came from. The dialogue continued its relentless flow. As Bai Woo rotated the disc, the handcuffs clattered to the ground. The dialogue transformed once more, revealing that the exploration level of the current area stood at a mere 4.5%. There are over 35 malevolent beasts, and the fragments of this area are still uncollected. My assessment is merely superficial. Bai Woo glanced at the dialogue, a smile creeping across his face. His mind was brimming with questions. He hoped the tower would offer something more intriguing. He was the most useless beggar in this apocalyptic world. Yet, the noble army was making every effort to persuade him to join their ranks. Because not only had he survived 2 hours in the most perilous zone of the apocalypse, but he had also effortlessly countered the elite assassins sent by the nobility. However, Bai Woo cared little for that. He was far more interested in joining the refugee army. After killing the assassin and returning to the tower, he learned the rules of this world through the interrogation department within the tower. For instance, the information on the assassin with a second-level life force ability. Segment 4 represented the basic level of human ability. And to elevate one's life force level, the only path was to venture outside the tower. The longer one spent outside the tower, the greater the enhancement of their life force. External items would also undergo similar transformations. The inhabitants referred to them as Ki Lin. Additionally, the talent ladder of the assassin stood at 755. Armed with steel, signifying a powerful super ability. Currently, there were a total of 1.024 types of talent ladders, with rarer types located further ahead. Simultaneously, strength would also escalate. However, this could only be achieved based on a foundation of half a lifetime's worth of strength. The stronger the foundation, the earlier the innate talent would awaken. The noble army they spoke of was the noble army of the town tower, primarily formed by the offspring of nobility who had not left the tower. The refugee army was the investigative force operating outside the tower. Their task is to explore outside the tower in search of supplies. Although established by 5 ruling classes, Bai Woo believes that the rules of this world encourage people to venture beyond the tower. Facing brutality alone bears no emotional danger, and he himself is a beggar at heart. Even if he integrates into the nobility, he is merely a delicacy for others. The investigation team outside the tower fascinates him. Captain of Team 7, Wu Ju, and Captain of Team 13, Lu Mu, are attending an interrogation meeting. When hearing that the interrogation team not only failed to extract Bai Woo's secrets but also fell victim to his cunning, the Captain Lu Mu couldn't help but burst into laughter. Thankfully, their interrogation team did not lose face. However, Wu Ju did not feel anger, as the questions Bai Woo asked were ones even a 3-year-old could answer. Yet, this only piqued the 2 captains' interest in Bai Woo even more. Once Bai Woo was handed over to them, he became a tool in the hands of a noblewoman. They couldn't understand why a noble would disdain the investigation team while acting this way. But they soon uncovered Bai Woo's impressive past. Bai Woo is indeed a born investigator outside the tower. Lu Mu, skilled in interrogation, stood up upon hearing this. He wanted to meet this extraordinary individual himself. Although this is Wu Ju's territory, he had survived alone for 24 days outside the tower, which wasn't his forte. He had spent half his life ingratiating himself with others and was adept at fragmenting cruelty into 2. After a while, Lu Mu arrived in the city of Shenzhen and sent the others away. Before he could say a word to Bai Woo, the latter immediately expressed his desire to join the investigation team. However, he did not wish to join Lu Mu's team. He wanted to remain with the interrogation team. Lu Mu felt perplexed. It seemed his ultimate goal had been achieved. Yet he felt as if he had done nothing. Bai Woo continued, saying that if you do not handle the network, it indicates you are not the one to cast me out of the tower. From the reactions of the interrogators just now, it is evident that your presence is illogical. Clearly, you are not the captain of their squad. At this moment, Bai Woo glanced at Lu Mu's right wrist. The joint was sunken, indicating that the weapon he was accustomed to wielding was a shield. Because a shield user would bear pressure on the wrist joint, for an average person, the wrist joint would protrude. Beneath the wrist bone, there is a scar 3 centimeters long, suggesting the shield had undoubtedly been damaged. If you are indeed the captain of the investigation team outside the tower, then your experience level naturally cannot be low. If you have used a shield and still bear a scar, it indicates it has been shattered. When you lift the shield to protect your face, vicious claws will immediately strike your wrist at the spot 3 centimeters below. At this moment, Lu Mu was lost, not knowing who he was anymore. Bai Woo realized he had successfully deceived him. Without hesitation, he made his request. I need a complete periodic table of talents. If you can help me obtain it. Before he could finish his sentence, Lu Mu had vanished without a trace. At that moment, Lu Mu was solely focused on one thing: how to recruit such a talent for his 13th team. 15 minutes later, Lu Mu returned with astonishing speed. He noticed Bai Woo frantically flipping through the talent table. Looking somewhat perplexed, Bai Woo seemed to lack knowledge about the tower. But of course, he couldn't reveal that he was from another world. He could only mention that he might have lost his memory. Perhaps those who had thrown him out of the tower had done something to him. Well, Lu Mu decided not to dwell on this trivial matter. He sat down and joined Bai Woo in browsing through the information. Beginning to explain the basics, he spoke of the entire tower, mentioning that the 3 lowest floors were topped by the number 99. His own talent was number 256. The lower realm, those who ranked above had long since vanished from sight. In Lu Mu's eyes, the top 100 were in a realm of the divine. It was rumored that about 20 years ago, a minor had awakened talent number 76. Absolute dissolution. However, it seemed that fate did not favor that individual. Bai Woo bluntly reached a conclusion. Lu Mu's mouth fell open in surprise, but he nodded in agreement. That person had completely disappeared, and the incident was quickly suppressed. They speculated that he might have been taken by a higher organization, possibly from the 5th or even the 6th floor. Bai Woo remained silent. He was already aware that the tower had 6 floors. Furthermore, he had found what he was looking for, talent number 24. The Pureal Eye, which could reveal the focal points of vision. This style resonated with his character, providing an explanation shrouded in mystery. Bai Woo was convinced that this was his true potential. Yet, the talent table did not list any of the other abilities from his previous 5 lives. Clearly, these matters were tied to a piece of information of immense importance. However, the notes indicated that aligning with one's innate style was a hidden aspect. Was his hidden side really that terrible? How could this body possess such a high ranking? He was uncertain about how weak his own half-life strength truly was. This also suggested that the body was genuinely experiencing the outside of the tower for the first time. It seemed the secrets of this body were not insignificant either. With this in mind, he promptly asked Lu Mu whether the organization here required a talent assessment. Lu Mu informed him that talents were personal assets. If an individual chose not to disclose them, no special checks would be conducted. Moreover, each person could only possess one type of talent. However, according to rumors from the 6th floor, one can also gain additional talents by eliminating extraordinarily powerful villains. Yet, those wicked beings should pray that they do not cross paths with someone like me. Bai Woo understands that his Pureal Eye isn't suited for combat. However, if he wishes to protect himself, he must find a way to escape the tower and seek out additional talents. At that moment, Lu Mu suddenly cleared his throat, as if he were about to speak on a serious matter. Bai Woo grasped his intention. He placed the talent tablet against his chest and said, "I'm sorry, Brother Lu, you are a good man, but I choose Team 7. Before Lu Mu could even open his mouth, he was already rejected. As Bai Woo stood up to leave, he remarked, "In the earlier interrogation, I learned that Team 7 is the most ordinary squad to venture outside the tower among the 16 divisions." Lu Mu, hearing this, felt even more puzzled. Wasn't this a reason to dissuade him instead? Nevertheless, he quickly responded, offering Bai Woo the position of left vanguard, stating that all other requests could be accommodated. Bai Woo shook his head and continued, "Brother Lu, you must still be single, right?" Lu Mu was taken aback, and Bai Woo pressed on. "You must choose someone who has shown you kindness before. If you have your eye on someone, you mustn't fight on their turf. Now you will understand what your uncle had to endure. Moreover, the number 13 is unlucky." With that, Bai Woo stepped outside and shut the door. Leaving quietly, Lu Mu stood there, as if frozen in place. As for the captain of Team 7, Ju Chu, if he had feelings for someone, he must not allow himself to be at a disadvantage. You have already tasted the consequences of betraying someone's trust. Furthermore, the number 13 is indeed a harbinger of misfortune. After saying this, Bai Woo swiftly exited, closing the door behind him and vanishing like a gust of wind. Lu Mu remained, unable to believe what he had just heard. The captain of Team 7, Ju Chu, would often encounter a powerful NPC in the new village. This diminutive figure, standing at just 1.59 meters, seemed to be that very character. He harbored secrets that even the 6th floor was keenly interested in. Little did Ju Chu know that the secret of his height had been exposed. He had been waiting outside for a long time. He claimed to have completed the low-tier citizen registration for Bai Woo. Previously, Bai Woo not having a citizen ID was not a significant issue. At this moment, the Pureal Eye also made an appearance. You understand how that works. He simply stated that his name was Guo Tingyun, and told Bai Woo to call him Guo Dui. "Alright, Ju Chu," Bai Woo called out to him. Perhaps this was the hidden side of Bai Woo coming into play. Ju Chu's face turned pale as he glanced nervously at the 2 interrogators behind him. Fortunately, the nickname had been used several times. Ju Chu didn't dwell on it too much. At this moment, Bai Woo raised his hand and continued, "I have a request." Ju Chu immediately understood. "If you do not wish to leave the tower, You could also join the interrogation team. Recently, they have accumulated quite a number of cases. Bai Woo smiled gently. But that's not it. But I want to leave the tower tomorrow. He is just a weak beggar noble, unable to defend himself. Yet the troops are clamoring to recruit him. Moreover, the requirement for him to join is not wealth or beautiful women, but rather to take him to a perilous apocalyptic world. This baffles the army captain. For just half a day ago, he barely escaped the tower with his life intact. Now he is eager to venture out. What does this mean? However, Captain Wu Ju is no ordinary superior. He turns around and agrees to Bai Woo's request, only cautioning him that with half of his strength, he would only reach the 3rd level of Class 1. After exiting the tower, it would be best not to drag others down. Bai Woo will leave the tower with his team to the White Zone. He pays no heed to Wu Ju's warning. He knows that his half-life strength comes from having spent 2 hours in the Green Zone earlier. Yet, he remains unaware of how the different colored zones are categorized. Bai Woo abruptly shifts the conversation to this question, leaving everyone even more perplexed. With no understanding, he is fixated on the idea of rushing outside. Wu Ju dismisses Bai Woo's foolish inquiry and proceeds to handle other formalities. Heading toward the interrogation group, where Shui Si and Van Tu await, can only receive the task of welcoming Bai Woo. They inform him that the area outside the tower is divided into 6 types: white, green, purple, red, black. Perhaps the implication is that the further you go, the more terrifying it becomes. Afterward, they assist Bai Woo in changing into a set of clothes and introduce him to the environment on the 1st floor of the tower. A while later, everyone arrives at the rudimentary port in the lower area, but as they enter the port, they are captivated by a gigantic screen. On the screen, a uniformed soldier from the investigation team is being auctioned off, almost blowing away the shovel in his hand. Bai Woo, using his P-real eyes, observes intently. Immediately, someone jumps out, starting to mock, urging Bai Woo to quickly look away and find some beauties instead. It's truly a self-mockery that's also quite amusing. At this moment, Van Tu appears visibly angry. Clearly, the person on the screen is not from the investigation team, and she turns to find Captain Wu Ju to put an end to their den. Shui Si immediately tosses the items prepared for Bai Woo and chases after Van Tu. After all, the internal forces within the tower are chaotic, and they cannot allow Van Tu to act recklessly. Bai Woo, however, is unconcerned. While wandering around, he stops in front of a shop named Orange Treasure. Half an hour later, he returns home laden with a pile of items. This is the home that Wu Ju helped him rent at a low price. But as soon as he steps inside, he sees the box that Wu Ju left for him. The items within the box reflect Wu Ju's state of mind. Additionally, there was a guidebook detailing the precautions for leaving the tower. He held it carefully, not a hint of arrogance, and perused its contents. Newcomers exiting the tower would be equipped with an emotional watch. When the wearer's emotions fluctuated to a level of 75, an alarm would sound. All members of the investigation squad were required to abide by the rules. The moment the alarm rang from the wristband, the teleportation wheel must be activated. After all, humans sometimes fail to recognize when they are spiraling into emotional chaos. Hence the need for a unified standard of data. This would alleviate a great deal of hassle. However, to you, this might seem like nothing more than a worthless trinket. Pral's eyes reflected Bok Vu's spirit. But there was something else in the box that would certainly catch your interest. An unrestrained emotional sedative. When the distance to the beast reached a critical point, and the watch indicated imminent danger, it could be injected. This substance would temporarily plunge a person into a state of calm, lasting approximately 5 minutes. Once the effect wore off, emotions would surge, amplifying any negative feelings. Unless absolutely necessary, it's best to avoid using it. The principle of emotional springs? Upon seeing this, Bok Vu grabbed a syringe and injected himself. He then silently counted down, awaiting the emotional response after 5 minutes. It had been a long time since he felt sadness, or feelings like fear. 300 seconds passed in the blink of an eye. As time ran out, Bok Vu reflected on some experiences from the past, yet still felt nothing. He never toyed with fakes. But at this moment, he truly sensed no excitement, even feeling drowsy. Well, there shouldn't have been any expectations to begin with. The next morning, Bok Vu arrived punctually at the departure point. He had granted these stones the power to traverse space, but their actual purpose was to halt the one atop the tower. Garel's eyes absorbed every detail. At this moment, 591 also approached. The 4 individuals Bok Vu didn't recognize were present. Yet, they were not pretending. All of them greeted Bok Vu warmly. Hoang too, a wealthy scion born on the 3rd level of the tower, was always craving blood and thrills. A robust man, naturally. He had a penchant for collecting Barbie dolls. Lin Vo Nhu, hailing from the second level, looked more stunning than any woman, spoke with a venomous tongue, and was known for her daring invitations. Why not try to tame him? Lin Vo Nhu's shirt appeared to be made entirely of black silk. Seeing this, Bok Vu couldn't help but comment, "You look stunning." Thuong Tiu Nok, a true oddball, with an appearance reminiscent of a puppy, was the most unhinged among them, often being dragged back to the tower by the little one for having killed excessively. Bai Woo realized that the short guy mentioned by I Prawl was none other than 59. He reached out, wanting to shake hands with Tang Xiao Nuo, but unexpectedly, she was pushed aside by the last female member. The girl who took her place grasped Bai Woo's hand, Yansong. The only female in the team. She was a vengeful spirit, much like that little punk, harboring secrets of the 6th level within her being. Among them, she seemed the most ordinary. So what was the secret that the 6th level was so concerned about? Could it possibly be a rare chain of events? I Prawl was not a system. Bai Woo's question remained unanswered, yet the group before him gave him an ominous feeling. They all seemed like villains. 59 informed Bai Woo that the 6th member of the team had perished. Now, Bai Woo himself was the 6th. After that, he made his way alone to the exit of the tower. At that moment, the light on the white stone suddenly flared up. The logistics staff prepared to welcome the returning members, confirming that the pioneering investigation team had returned safely. Witnessing this, Bai Woo also understood the source of the resources within the tower. The people who ventured outside were merely a matter of chance. Thus, there was a need for the investigation brigade members to oversee the inspection of the area. Only after completing the cleanup could the lower-tier individuals be organized for labor exploitation. The markings on the stone were likely the targets they sought. As for Bai Woo and his team, they certainly did not need to queue. The members of the lower-tier investigation brigade all knew the big shot 59. Moreover, their tasks could not be compared to the exploitation work. The moment 59 touched the white stone, a series of numbers appeared above the cube. The white light instantly engulfed 59's image. Seeing that 59 had departed, everyone moved forward, entering the code as he left. One by one, they vanished within the tower. But when it was Yansong's turn, she paused. Yansong reiterated some important points for Bai Woo. She instructed Bai Woo that the code should be entered in an ascending horizontal sequence, advising him to practice once before stepping into the teleportation. Bai Woo expressed his gratitude, silently acknowledging that the note was indeed correct. Clearly, it was Yansong, yet she was the closest to normalcy. The code Bai Woo entered was a 7-digit number. Upon seeing this, he couldn't help but ponder. This meant that over the 700 years of the tower's existence, humanity had explored millions of areas. In this world, people had refrained from stepping outside their homes for 700 years. Because the moment they stepped out, they would slowly transform into wicked beings, consumed by darkness. Yet, correspondingly, if they lived just a bit longer, they could attain extraordinary power. Bai Woo, from the very beginning, had been cast into a world of 88-degree extreme cold by the nobles, to uncover the truth and gain the strength to protect himself. The next day, he joined the exploration brigade to venture outside the tower. However, after Bai Woo and his team completed their mission, things took a different turn. The 9th mental hospital. Here, it looked nothing like the lowest white area. 59 gazed at the scene before him, feeling a strange sensation. This time, he had specifically chosen a white zone 10 times more intense to care for Bai Woo. At this moment, Bai Woo's eyes were tense. If they hadn't entered this hospital, the difficulty of their exploration would have matched their expectations. But once inside, anything could happen. Who could predict the negative emotions of the patients? This place was simply a cradle of cruelty. Yet within, lay mysteries that only he could unravel. Bai Woo looked at the hospital sign with a hint of curiosity. Only I can solve this mystery. It is a piece of the apocalypse puzzle that I've never encountered before. Is this the face of fear of Shang Xiao Nuo? He mentioned that there are many wicked things inside, and I feel a bit scared. Bai Woo glanced at Shang Xiao Nuo, who appeared frightened, his watch unflinching. This person was not only a pervert but also a skilled actor. Nok Van, on the other hand, paid no attention to this pervert. She was surveying the surroundings. She stated there were no minerals or resources here. It was definitely a zone close to the city. Moreover, there was only one road leading behind. Meanwhile, Bai Woo and Vong the Van seemed quite excited. Well then, let's go in and take a look. This scene typically only existed in green zones. As the team leader, 59 remained remarkably calm. The temperature was around 46 degrees. Still relatively comfortable, but it could change rapidly. Well, it's just another weirdo. Bai Woo's gaze revealed his thoughts. He could only warn everyone to be cautious. This remark triggered Lin Vo Nhu, who was usually quiet, to explode. If you're scared, you can turn back right now. Don't attract the fiends to pull us in. Nu Ku Van quickly interrupted Lin Vo Nhu. He understood the personalities of several team members and, without further hesitation, stepped forward to open the door of the mental hospital. However, the group entered the hospital and noticed there were a total of 4 medical buildings, each with about 19 floors. Furthermore, except for the first building, the others were completely sealed at the lower levels, with no entrances. To reach the second building, they had to go from the 19th floor. They would need to cross the aerial corridor. Any deviation from the factory's design certainly had its reasons. Bai Woo speculated that perhaps the owner of the hospital didn't want anyone entering the second building. He summarized his thoughts on the rules here and shared them with the others. Upon hearing this, Lin Vo Nhu snorted, unsure if it was genuine dissatisfaction or just her personality. At that moment, Shang Xiao Nuo's hands trembled slightly as he mentioned that the first building housed 17 wicked souls. And he was feeling quite fearful. Bai Woo glanced at Shang Xiao Nuo, his face betraying an attempt to suppress excitement. No need for you to observe. Pral's eyes have already begun to mock. Moments later, the group stepped into the first building. The scene inside was indescribably chaotic. On some walls, bizarre blood-red inscriptions were scrawled. Everyone cautiously surveyed their surroundings. Playing is one thing, but facing the strange phenomena in the tower demands our utmost attention. What intrigued Bai Woo were those bloodstains and the cryptic writings. The dark red stains seemed freshly spilled. Yet, Pral's eyes clearly disapproved of this, urging Bai Woo not to delve into speculation. The psyche of a disturbed mind. However, it was evident that the blood in this situation were remnants from 2 days prior. Whether to conceal or to indicate something, no one could tell. Wang Wan searched around for a while, then asked what the next step should be. After all, this place had far too many rooms. But Wu Ju turned and looked at Bai Woo. Yuan Fang, what do you think? Bai Woo replied candidly. If we inspect each room, we might uncover some information. However, the deepest secrets surely lie within the fourth building. Ling Wu Niu seemed to take a jab at Bai Woo. Whenever Bai Woo spoke, she would inevitably interject with a few sarcastic remarks. Bai Woo paid no mind, stating that he would only explain once. If they had further questions, they should trust his words. Yan Song observed for a moment and suddenly realized that Bai Woo had a somewhat domineering presence. Wu Ju hurriedly intervened to stop Ling Wu Niu once again, allowing Bai Woo to continue his analysis. Bai Woo didn't pretend, as he had stated from the beginning. Only the first building had an entrance. If a patient in the fourth building needed urgent care, they would have to ascend from the lower floors to the 19th floor and then navigate through the third building. From the second building to the first. Finally from the 19th floor of the first building to some desolate level. During this time, the patients could essentially find a suitable reincarnation target. Therefore, logically speaking, the structure here resembled a prison more than a hospital. And there was only one escape route for the criminals. It could be easily controlled. If this was a prison, then the deepest part had to be the fourth building, where the core secrets of the entire hospital were hidden. At this point, Wang Wan immediately concurred. After all, he never needed to think much. But just then, Shang Xiao Nuo interrupted everyone's discussion, pointing to the side and signaling for them to halt. They noticed a number suddenly lighting up above the elevator, prompting Wu Ju to command the team to be on high alert. This was the responsibility of a team leader. However, Shang Xiao Nuo appeared excited, announcing that they wouldn't need to climb each level anymore. Bai Woo quickly shifted the topic, expressing his curiosity. It was said that outside the tower, no one had lived for 700 years. And these cities and hospitals must have crumbled long ago. But why are some facilities still operational? For instance, the fire hose he encountered earlier. 59, with an expression devoid of confusion, noted that they had experienced similar situations. Like in amusement parks, where some equipment occasionally activates on its own. Perhaps there are strange rules governing this tower. It seems that not only the space is changing. Bai Woo nodded. This is a phenomenon that cannot be explained at present. It can only be temporarily categorized as a bizarre setup. As they conversed, the elevator smoothly descended to the first floor. Yet, lurking within the elevator was an impending threat. All 6 of them recognized it. As the elevator doors slowly opened, an indescribable horror emerged. This was a game orchestrated by the deranged and the depraved. The fly-headed patient charged into the elevator, aiming to attack the twisted souls. Yet the deranged one merely adjusted his hair, preparing for his experiments. The deranged one signaled his intent to strike from behind. The middle deranged figure sensed that this one was unusual. Bai Woo watched as the fly-head fell, feeling a twinge of helplessness. Indeed, the mad and the depraved could never find harmony. Bai Woo's gaze shifted to the deranged figure in the center. 59's weapon would have to eradicate these threats. Level 19 of the Calamity. Potentially, when encountering a threat, it could amplify destructive power and weaken it. 59 calmly sheathed his knife. Second-level threats were trivial. Let's move. Now we advance to the 19th floor of this building. Bai Woo paid no heed to 59's theatrics. He recalled when 59 survived 24 days outside the tower. Perhaps that was when the knife became sentient. This was the larger deranged entity, Prince, and the smaller deranged one, Shang Xiaoyue, passed by him, mumbling about how they were still unsatisfied. Now that the threat had vanished, Bai Woo should also hasten to catch up. Yet, Bai Woo bent down to pick up the fly-head, moving closer to the patient to reattach it. The adjacent patient had only a fly head sprouting from where the mouth should be, while the other body parts resembled those of a human. Perhaps it was a second-level threat. Nevertheless, this implies that he still shares some similarities with humans. Moreover, the subject has no reproductive organs anymore, seemingly having evolved to shed unnecessary attributes. Bai Woo analyzed while probing the patient's body. Soon, he discovered a diary page in the patient's pocket. The content vaguely spoke of this patient's obsessions and mentioned a special girl on the 11th floor. The diary paper was torn and crumpled at the corner, perhaps a sign of a struggle to conceal it from someone. The date inscribed in the diary was in the year 2026. Who knows how much longer it is from now to the Tower era, which has already spanned 704 years. Furthermore, the diary, much like the elevator, has remained unchanged for 700 years. The rules that might be related left Bai Woo deep in thought. This was the child of Lam Onhu, whom he held in disdain. Stimulated by the urgency, Bai Woo hurriedly regained his composure and stepped into the elevator, alerting everyone that the impending danger might surpass their predictions. Furthermore, there was an intriguing presence on the 11th floor. Without waiting for anyone to respond, he pressed the button for the 11th floor. Naturally, he didn't forget to tease Lam Onhu, advising her to be more cautious in the future. Just as he finished, a chilling laugh echoed through the air. But Shang Xiao Nuo appeared to be mocking once again. Clearly, the deranged could never be understood by mere mortals. The 11th floor arrived swiftly. The layout of this level primarily consisted of rooms designed to confine patients. Strangely, there were no windows in the building, only 2 doctors' offices. Sounds emanated from one of those rooms, filled with yearning and fragmented utterances, echoing in Bai Woo's ears. It was as if 2 voices, differing in age and emotion, were intertwining. At that moment, a drop of black liquid fell onto his glasses. In the next instant, a pitch-black arm suddenly reached down from the ceiling. It swiftly grabbed the unprepared glasses. The blade glinted menacingly as 59 drew his knife in a flash, immediately blocking the arm's path and severing it. The appearance of the arm sent a wave of unease through 59. He quickly urged his teammates to remain calm. Yet, things did not unfold as 59 had anticipated. From the ceiling, several other ominous arms swiftly emerged. Lam Onhu complained while striking back, his emotional meter skyrocketing to a staggering 1 billion. Prince, on the other hand, was elated, bursting with power. However, his emotional meter stood at a mere 9. While Shang Xiao Nuo was as excited as if he encountered a pile of dung. He warned everyone not to compete with him for these toys. Yet, his emotional meter now only registered a 7. The only normal person in the team, Shuang, skillfully dodged, but his emotional meter had reached an astounding 2 billion. The leader, Wu Ju, glanced at his meter and calmly reminded everyone to fight quickly. His emotional meter only showed a 3. Meanwhile, Bai Woo stood alone in the middle of the corridor, watching 59 and the others sever the arms. His emotional meter forever stuck at 0. He was now so bored that he felt drowsy. However, he also recognized that his teammates were still at normal levels, far from the danger threshold. It only seemed that they were a bit hasty in dealing with the situation. At that moment, 59 appeared slightly frustrated and suddenly unleashed his power. His body created a series of afterimages. In the next instant, blades of light filled the entire corridor of the 11th floor. All the sinister arms were annihilated. Yet, it seemed that these arms could not be completely severed. From the restroom, even larger arms began to emerge. The hospital had been closed for 700 years. Yet the elevator still operated normally. Occasionally, patients appeared, seeking emotional connection, but this bizarre scene did little to quell the curiosity of the morbidly inclined. Bai Woo and his team ascended to the 11th floor of the hospital, quickly drawn into a fierce battle against the ominous arms that threatened them. Because these severed arms would instantly regenerate, only Bai Woo remained untouched by negative emotions. Never having been attacked, the threat they faced this time seemed exceedingly rare. With just a hint of emotional fluctuation, he could sense the presence of the prey. Typically, these threats were exceptionally powerful. At this moment, Lam Onhu looked at Bai Woo with a peculiar gaze. Questioning why he was not under attack, Bai Woo yawned, rubbed his eyes, and remarked, "I'm even a bit sleepy." In contrast, Nhi Song understood why the captain had chosen Bai Woo to be the sixth member. This man possessed an extraordinary level of courage. While busy, Thuong Tiu Nok glanced back, noting that his index was that of a soul, a monster. He then plunged back into the fray against the ominous arms. Bai Woo, not wishing to linger and watch everyone else work, declared that he would see for himself up ahead. His figure faded into the shadows. The rapid attack left Bai Woo standing still in shock. "Let me finish this here first," he remarked casually, understanding that until everyone's emotional reading stabilized, these threatening arms would continue their relentless assault. Thus, he waved his hand and strode directly toward the room at the end of the corridor. The prince was a formidable figure, capable of crushing these arms with sheer strength. Yet, he was also intrigued by Bai Woo's approach, asking Wu Ju where Bai Woo had been found, but received no concrete answer. It was merely suggested that if Bai Woo's emotions were like a single number, perhaps it was indeed his inherent courage shining through. However, if it was 0, then there could be a malfunction in the emotional device, or perhaps something was amiss within him. Bai Woo paid no mind to this profound conversation. He pushed the door open. The room inside was far larger than Bai Woo had imagined. The floor was cluttered, and in the center stood an intricately crafted iron cage. The eyes of Prel revealed that this was a cage meant to imprison a soul. It performed its function as a prison flawlessly. From start to finish, that unfortunate creature had never managed to escape its confines. When finally released, born a dragon, it was filled with deep regret. The chains were also artifacts meant to restrain the soul. Judging by the quality of the cage, it was indeed a high-grade item. However, if it were an ordinary tool, it would be just a perfect fit. Syringes were scattered everywhere, each containing tranquilizers and serums from various bizarre entities. Just one injection could leave one feeling exhilarated. Getting 2 shots will make you healthier. Getting 3 will make you younger. It seems like the camera's resolution is pretty high, but there's nothing particularly exciting about it. I suggest you attach one at Song's house. He's really fond of that kind of thing. Bai Woo found it somewhat amusing. Hastily shifting your gaze elsewhere. There's no need to look anymore. The documents in this room have already been destroyed. The owner of the room has also been assimilated by that pitiful creature. Previously, these 2 rooms held a wealth of information, but now it's best if you focus on the desk. Bai Woo glanced around again, confirming that nothing had been overlooked, and then walked over to the desk. What was truly pitiful was that within sight, there was only a sparse scene, not destroyed, but rather left as a choice for those who would come later. These 3 items will help you obtain 3 things: the stream of power, the friendship of the pitiful one, and the enhancement item of the pitiful one. You must choose carefully, for if you select one, the other 2 will disappear. Bai Woo frowned. He looked at the document that resembled a journal. He opened it to check. The history was undated, and the handwriting was crooked. Every page contained words like benevolence and virtue. He had picked the wrong script. Who seriously writes a diary? Anyway, this was a document containing many details that he and the petty person wanted to know. But when the pitiful one saw him, it would give him a bit more useful knowledge or power. That, he would have to figure out on his own. Bai Woo, of course, could not. He thought that this must be the historical book from before the Tower era. The document recorded things that both he and Wu Ju were interested in. Perhaps here lay a clue to the historical truth. Then, he turned his gaze to the items beside him. This key isn't the key to the cage. It might unlock something important somewhere. It could be a shortcut, or it could be an abyss. Bai Woo scratched his head in frustration. His current mood was truly sour. Because he couldn't sense certain emotions, he felt empty. After all, in his previous life, he had been an extraordinary information gatherer. Yet the last item, the comb, carried no information at all. He wasn't sure what consequences choosing one of these items would bring. Out of the 3 choices, over 1,000 lifetimes would encounter something sinister. It would grant him a series of talents, while in over 1,000 other lifetimes, he would be hated by malice. Although he had naturally despised humanity from the start. At the same time, outside the room, the emotions of the passers-by had also calmed down. The malicious arm gradually loosened its grip inside him, but just as they were about to enter the house to find Bai Woo, his doors suddenly slammed shut. This was a game where no one survived. In the game, all sorts of monsters attacked the players, but the players couldn't show any emotional fluctuations. If they did, the monsters would keep appearing, never dying, until all participants are dead. And Bai Woo, due to the twisted tortures inflicted by his father in his previous life, has lost all negative emotions. This also allows him to uncover powerful information before his teammates. Now, Bai Woo is faced with 3 different choices. A wrong choice would mean no turning back. As the door suddenly slams shut for no apparent reason, the voices of his teammates outside turn anxious, pounding on the door, calling out Bai Woo's name. But just as they attempt to force the door open, a malevolent arm starts to thrash wildly. It bursts forth from the surrounding walls. The unexpected event causes everyone to waver emotionally. The numbers on the wristwatch struggle to return to 0, only to begin skyrocketing again. While they may cope with the current situation, the atmosphere grows thick with resentment. This also unsettles the mind of Yi Sheng. Meanwhile, Bai Woo remains unaware that as he is about to make a choice, the entire 11th floor is enveloped in a heavy shroud of malice. He analyzes the available information himself, drawing on investigative experience from his past life. He deduces that the 2 rooms at the end must surely be a laboratory. Aside from the lab he currently sees, there should have been many other instruments, but all have been destroyed. The test subjects are locked in cages. Every action is monitored. The experimentation process involves injecting some sort of event, observing the reactions. Perhaps this event is tied to cruelty. And during this process, the test subjects were once visited by others. In other words, his consciousness has made contact with others. At that time, his consciousness surely was not yet filled with grievances. Based on Bai Woo's reasoning, the remaining information from the villain on the 1st floor indicates that the villain died before turning malevolent. He must have never encountered him. At the very least, the Institute cannot allow these monsters to meet. He may have communicated with others through consciousness. This is a secret between him and the other test subjects. After all, the Institute certainly doesn't want the test subjects to communicate privately. The villain on the lower floor was once worried about being transferred to the 2nd chamber. Reality proves that he indeed has been relocated. It can be seen that his powers have been discovered. Or perhaps other test subjects who have come into contact with his consciousness have ratted him out. From this, it can be inferred that the 2nd chamber of the villain possesses even greater power than the 1st. At the very least, it can carry out attacks of resentment. In other words, the test subjects have acquired some sort of superpower. They will be transferred to the 2nd chamber. But why is there a comb? And Bai Woo's words provide no further insight? According to the notes from the villain on the 1st floor, the test subject is female. But in an environment like this, how could a comb possibly be of use? Bai Woo blinked once more, but all he received was a mocking smile. A nagging suspicion stirred within him. If his empathic abilities were truly intact, he would be swept away by a tide of negative emotions right now. Unfortunately, the emotional meter still read a flat 0. Meanwhile, outside, Li Guoru was in a state of panic. He couldn't fathom what Bai Woo was doing, nor why there was no response. Wang Shi relentlessly unleashed his resentment, questioning whether Bai Woo was facing some dark force within the confines of that room. Only the body of Shang Xiao could truly sense the existence of this malevolence. Yet, his manic laughter echoed ominously through the corridor. Despite the way